Welcome to Cubbie Corner here on SouthBendCubs.com alongside Darin Pritchett. I'm Brendan King, your 2018 South Bend Cubs broadcast team. And Darin, it's an exciting day to be a baseball fan in general. It's pitchers and catchers report day down spring training, but we just watched Yu Darvish just get introduced by the Chicago Cubs. 6 years, $126 million. What are your thoughts on the Darvish signing?
I don't worry about the money too much. The Cubs are such a big market team. They have plenty of money, so the money doesn't bother me. 31 getting a 6-year deal. There's a lot of red flags there, but the Cubs are in win mode right now. They want to take advantage of the Rizzo Bryant era, so they're adding that top-of-the-line starter to take the place of Jake Arrieta. But I think the Chatwood signing replacing Lackey is almost really as important because I think that makes them better than Darvish replacing Arrieta because there's not a whole lot of difference between those two.
The Cubs rotation now stands with Jon Lester, Jose Quintana, Kyle Hendricks, Yu Darvish, and Tyler Chatwood, just like Darin mentioned. Now, this rotation of 5, taking John Lackey out, replacing Arrieta, does this make it the best starting rotation in baseball?
That's a good argument. I think the Astros have a pretty good say right now for that spot, but I think definitely in the National League, the Cubs have that particular honor, and I think they've got enough depth in that rotation. If there's an injury, I think they can withstand it, but I just think with Darvish and Quintana, that's an awfully good one, too. Let's see how Jon Lester responds. Was it a couple of starts that threw off his numbers, or is the decline starting? I think we'll have to find out this year. But if Lester's not that number one anymore, well, pretty good replacement in Darvish.
Well, that's the rotation. Now let's move to the bullpen. Now, Wade Davis is gone. He just signed with the Colorado Rockies. You add Brandon Morrow to go along with Drew Smyly and Cishek. This bullpen, it was shaky at times last year, but is it going to get better? Have we seen now a bullpen that's going to be consistent for Chicago Cubs?
It's funny. I don't think we'll know to the playoffs because Joe Madden goes with these guys during the regular season, and when he gets to the playoffs, he goes down to maybe 2 or 3 guys that he really trusts and goes with it. But I think Cishek will have to see what he can bring. Morrow is a dominant guy, but it's tough to ask Morrow to be Wade Davis because he pretty much nailed down every game possible. So that's a pretty high standard, but Morrow's been really, really good. So I think the depth of the bullpen might be a little better. Let's just see how they perform maybe in the big moments later on in the year.
Well, now with the new pitching coach, Jim Hickey, I'm confident that we might see a very good Cishek, a guy that had a ERA under 1.5 last year and just about 24 innings with the Rays. You bring that pitching coach over to the Cubs. I have really high hopes. You know, Chris Bosio was great in his role as a pitching coach, but to get a fresh mind in there, I think is going to have a big impact.
Joe Madden loves him, and he wanted him. That's his guy. In fact, he was wanted by a lot of teams in Major League Baseball. I think that was a heck of a coup for the Cubs to grab his services.
Now to talk about the starting lineup, Theo Epstein has gone all in with the chips in terms of pitching. The lineup's going to stay relatively the same. Your only big loss, like we talked about off air, is John Jay, a guy that batted leadoff a lot. But this lineup, is it going to be like consistent like last year? Is John Jay a big loss to you?
You know, the big difference between the Cubs and the Astros don't strike out. They were number 1 in baseball in avoiding strikeouts. They put the ball in play. The Cubs are a little bit more go for it with 2 strikes. They don't necessarily put the ball in play as much, but Contreras to me is a blooming star. He's ready to take that next step. Can Baez just put the ball in play a little more? And Addison Russell, I keep waiting for his breakout year. I thought it was going to be 2 years ago. Great glove. He's got that pop, but the average and the on-base percentage is not where I think it can be. I still think there's another level to his game. If those things start to happen, I don't know where the weak spot is in this lineup. Maybe in the leadoff spot, who's going to be the leadoff guy? That has not been solved, but I think with the way the guys that hit 2, 3, 4, and 5 stack up in this lineup, I don't think necessarily having that great leadoff guy is going to be that important.
I think if they can both emerge, either Almora or Ian Happ is a decent candidate to bat leadoff. Now, you miss Dexter Fowler. I think everybody misses Dexter Fowler. But last year you have John Jay to play 141 games. That certainly helped. But if Almora and the former South Bend Cub Ian Happ can develop, I think that looks pretty good on paper.
Probably going to be a good platoon. Almora just creams left-handed pitching. So you almost have to pencil him in against lefties. Unfortunately, in the NL Central, there aren't many left-handed starters, which is kind of strange. And we saw Happ, the great power he had here in South Bend. It's already been on display at Wrigley Field. Can he be an average center fielder? I think that's to be determined. I think he can handle that. We saw him mostly in left and right field here in South Bend, so center field's a little different animal, but I think he's made enough steps over the last year or so that he can at least be that average defender in center field.
Now, before we go, we got a lot of NL Central teams trying to win the division and eventually the pennant. You go to the Milwaukee Brewers, you go to the St. Louis Cardinals. Look at the moves that they're making right now in terms of the NL Central.
Yeah.
What's it going to take for the Chicago Cubs to make a difference in the Central this year?
Gosh, I don't know how the Brewers and the Cardinals can do anything over the next couple of weeks to catch Chicago. Milwaukee has a good lineup. You look at their starting rotation, it's solid, but it's not spectacular. They don't have that Darvish or Quintana or even a Carlos Martinez of St. Louis. So I really wonder, will their starting rotation hold up over a 162-game season? I wouldn't be shocked if Arrieta doesn't end up there. They really need him more than anything. St. Louis is playing for the wild card, in my opinion. I don't think they've done enough in their bullpen, and I think there's probably a weakness on a corner infield spot. And you got Adam Wainwright in their rotation still, who had an injury-plagued season, wasn't very good last year. Now, they have all the young pitching ready to come up, unlike the Cubs, but the Cubs always have those position players, it seems like, to fill in that St. Louis can't. So, to me, the Cubs are 7 or 8 games better than Milwaukee, and I think St. Louis might be 9 or 10 games behind them.
How excited are you that baseball's back?
My gosh, I cannot wait. I love hockey, but let's get baseball going. This snow stinks.
It does. That does it for us. Darin, Pritchett, Brendan, and Kim will be back next week with another edition of Cubbie Corner. Until then, so long.